I'm calling this the bag of licks for D endings, and what I mean by that is not necessarily the end of the song, but the end of phrases, because a lot of bluegrass songs will go to a measure or 2 measures or 3 measures of D. And so I'm going to give you 10 2-measure D licks that resolve back to the G chord. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and back to the G. And then you can cut those in half if you need 1 measure, or you can combine them if you need more than 2 measures. But we're going to learn all 10 of them, but I'm also going to give you a lot of variations. So this is going to be tons of banjo here. Let's go ahead and throw out the first line of tab. One thing that I want you to notice is beneath each one of the notes, I have our pick hand indications. So the T stands for thumb, the 2 would stand for middle, and the 1 would stand for index. Pretty straight ahead here. We are going to be jumping up with our thumb and grabbing those as well. Now each one of these are going to walk into the D chord in a similar fashion. So we're going to come in there, that first measure that you see, it's labeled measure 2. We're going to come in on the second beat. And I'm just going to be walking in chromatically, because many times that's the walk in that I'll use. To go into that D lick, that D ending. So that's what we're going to do. We're going to go right into there, and then starting in measure 3 there, I'm going to give you what I'm going to call the forward number 1. And what I mean by that is that this lick it has a forward fill. It has some forward licks in it, and there's lots of different variations to this one. But very briefly, here's what it sounds like. So it's going to start out there with 3/4 notes, and then start on the last beat of measure 3, we're going to do a 16th note hammer-on, a forward roll in measure 4, then reverse to a pull-off, and then measure 5 is going to be our regular old G lick. If you're not familiar with those, you can look there, a beginner banjo learning track, and we spent a lot of time learning how to play it. Okay, so this lick is pretty straight ahead. It's spacey. I like it whenever I'm going really fast because it's not too busy. So it can go as fast as you need to, but it also has a lot of room for variations. What do I mean by that? Well, you can, for instance, there in measure 3, it's the second measure in the line, but it's labeled measure 3. For that second beat, the first time you hit that first string, you can make that a 2nd fret. And that's going to give it a different feel, a different sound. In the same way, when you get to measure 4 and we're doing that forward roll, you could fret that 2nd fret up there. So this lick would sound like this. So just like that, I could have the same pick hand fingerings, the same rhythm, but we could have 3 different sounding licks. Here's the first, second, so that's a lot of tools for us to put in our pocket there. Now, don't forget I have the rhythm tracks that you can download here, 3 different speeds, and we can walk through all these. Now, as we look at the next one, we're going to call it forward number 2, and it's going to change a little bit. It's not going to have quite as much space in it. We're going to get into it the same way, but we're going to start with a forward roll immediately. So on the second beat there in measure 7, we're going to jump into that hammer-on, then do a complete forward roll to finish out that measure. And then we're going to do that Foggy Mountain lick, which if you haven't learned how to properly do that, I also have that in the beginner banjo learning track. But we're going to do that, it's going to alternate. We're going to jump down with our thumb there, measure 8. So the whole line. Now the same thing here, measure 7, you could throw in that 2nd fret up there in that forward roll. I also love this as a G lick whenever I'm getting ready to go to a C chord, because for that forward roll there in measure 7, I could also play that 3rd fret beneath it. That's going to be our 7th tone. So it works great for a G to C. You can also keep that fret down in measure 8. So okay, so this is a very utilitarian lick there. So I encourage you to put this one away and just remember that we can manipulate that first string in a lot of different ways. We can place that second fret down, place the third fret down. You could place the fifth fret down and give it more of a kind of a modal type sound. I'm calling this the bag of licks for D endings, and what I mean by that is not necessarily the end of the song, but the end of phrases, because a lot